edition of Live Handicapping Session? I hope so. Anyway, I'm Brad Free from Daily Race Inform, and we are kind of breaking new territory this afternoon. 2 days in front of the Grade 3 San Simeon Stakes and the Grade 1 Beholder Mile at Santa Anita. We're taping this on Thursday afternoon, and we're going to be talking about the San Simeon, a turf sprint. That's race number 7, and the Beholder Mile for top class fillies and mares, including the 2020 champion 3-year-old filly, Swiss Skydiver, who is making her first start of the season against locally based Harvest Moon, and others, including some potential upsetters in the Beholder Mile. That's race number 8. First up is the San Simeon Stakes. It's a grade 3, 6 furlong grass race for, well, it's open to either gender, and we do happen to have a 5-year-old mare in the field, and turns out she's the morning line favorite. I'm referring to number 7, Jolie Olympica, and we'll talk about her in just a minute. We'll also talk about the defending winner of this race. Sistron is actually making his 3rd consecutive appearance in the San Simeon. He finished 2nd in the race 2 years ago. He won the San Simeon last year, and now he's coming back in off a 10-month layoff. And then finally, we're going to be talking about the horse that I really, really like. And I would love to lock in his morning line odds of 7-2, but I don't think that's going to happen. I expect him to get bet down a little bit. Okay, let's talk about last year's winner. His name is Sistron. And as you can see from his past performances, when he won the San Simeon last year, last March 21st, he was making his first start since July of 2019. So we know 2 things by looking at Sistron's past performances. A, he can run well fresh. B, he can win a graded stakes race on turf in Southern California. In fact, if you go 3 starts back, you can see that he was briefly the premier sprinter on either surface in 2019 when he won the Bing Crosby Stakes down at Del Mar. The Bing Crosby, historically one of the toughest sprint races all season in Southern California. Okay, that's a look at Sistron. And you can also notice that his most recent start was in May of 2020. Well, let's go back and see how he runs fresh and roll the tape on the San Simeon a year ago. And that's Sistron 3rd on the rail in the green and white Rona silks, getting a gorgeous trip, saving every inch of ground, angling out, and taking dead aim at the odds-on favorite. That's a horse named Bound for Nowhere, top-class turf sprinter trained by Wesley Ward. Sistron was not supposed to beat Bound for Nowhere first start back, but that's exactly what he did. Trainer John Sadler had him cranked. Victor Espinoza gave him a great ride, and Sistron, with that forwardly placed running style and a ground-saving trip, was able to wear down Bound for Nowhere in deep stretch and win going away. Sistron would only start one more time in 2020. It was in the Daytona, and then he went off behind. He got sore in his hind end, according to trainer John Sadler, and that's why we haven't seen him since then. He's 7 years old, Sistron is, and I guess he could have been retired, but both Sadler and this colt's owners, this horse's owners, Ronas Racing, believe that they still have a sprinter that has some fresh legs on him. Having started only twice in 2020, I don't see why he couldn't come back and have another successful campaign. Talking with Sadler early this week, even though we saw Sistron win a grass sprint in that replay just now of the San Simeon a year ago, Sadler believes, and I agree, and I bet most people would, that Sistron is actually a better horse on the main track. He certainly is faster on the main track. He's earned faster numbers on dirt than he has on grass, but that does not mean he can't win this race first start back. And when you look through this field, there's not a whole lot of real zippy, gassy speed in this field. Sistron does have a forwardly placed running style, and in a race that is likely to unfold at a relatively tepid clip, you would think Sistron is going to have every opportunity to win this race with the forwardly placed running style. Okay, let's talk about the morning line favorite. It's Jolie Olympica, as you can see right there on the screen. And she arrived from South America with a big reputation. That's what happens when you win a grade 1 by 6 lengths and then you transfer to North America. Now trained by Richard Mandela. And as you can see from her past performances, she likes this grass course at Santa Anita. She's never run out of the chute yet. We have a new shoot at Santa Anita. They have abandoned the downhill sprints, the 6.5 down the hill, and we now run all the sprint races, turf sprints, out of the chute. 6 furlongs, which is the distance of the San Simeon, and or 6.5. Okay, Jolie Olympica, looking at her past performances from January of 2020, she runs well fresh. She has a forwardly placed running style. She has won 2 of her last 3 sprints. And she's had some problems stringing together successive starts. She got sick one time. She had a foot in problem another time. She's only started 4 times in the United States, 5 times in the US, and she's been here quite some time. Her most recent start to me is an absolute head scratcher, not because she did not run well. She actually did, but that's Jolie Olympica trailing this. It's actually a 6-runner field, but one of the horses lost their jockey at the start. So Jolie Olympica is at the back of the pack. And the reason I say this is puzzling, when you look at her past performances, Jolie Olympica is a filly, a mare, who typically is forwardly placed. Now, it's true that the winner, Charmaine's Mia, was up there going quick on the front end, 21-2, 43-4. But for Jolie Olympica to drop back to effectively in last place and then try to make a run, it was counter to the style that she has employed in her 4 previous U.S. starts, 2 wins and 2 seconds. This is a mare who runs best on or near the front end. Now, she ran well in defeat. She ran okay. I know she was the even money favorite, and so many bettors expected a little bit better than a runner-up finish. However, she got beat by a very good filly. Charmaine's Mia, the winner who led Gate to Wire, would come right back and win the Grade 2 Buena Vista in her next start. And the 4th place finisher, Superstition, also came back to win her next start in a little minor stakes race. So Jolie Olympic ran well, but she did it contrary to her normal style. And for me, when a front runner pace presser begins to lose his or her tactical speed as they mature and get a little bit older, to me, it's not a good sign at all. It can be a telltale sign of a horse, an aging horse, that is beginning to lose a step or 2. Now, I could be completely wrong, and we're only going off 1 race. But you would think that Jolie Olympica, when she made that comeback, it was her first start since July. Typically, fresh horses show speed. Jolie Olympica showed no speed. She put in a little half-hearted run through the lane. She was up for second. To me, it was an extremely disappointing effort by a top-class mare who started 8 times, and she's finished 1-2 in all 8 starts. So you can't be too critical on a top-class filly like Jolie Olympica. But when all is said and done, it's that guy right there, Gregorian Chant, who I think is the most probable winner on the Saturday card at Santa Anita. Gregorian Chant arrived in the U.S. in early 2019 with a huge reputation. They spent a lot of money on this guy overseas, and they thought they were going to come in and he was going to win every 3-year-old grass stake in Southern California and become a top-class turf miler. Well, it didn't pan out that way. He won his U.S. debut. He finished a flat 4th next time out in Stakes Company, and then his career just kind of went static. He did not improve. Nothing happened. So last year, early before his comeback start in July, trainer Phil D'Amato had Gregorian Chant gelded. Well, he made 4 starts as a gelding, but they were all around 2 turns. Finally, D'Amato said, let's shorten this horse up, and that's exactly what they did. They backed Gregorian Chant up to 1 turn. That's him on the far outside in dead last. Now, can you win a turf sprint at Santa Anita rallying from last? Well, you'll see in just a second that the answer is absolutely yes. Gregorian Chant shortening from 1.5 miles to 6 furlongs in the Clocker's Corner. This is a little restricted stakes race, and as expected from a horse shortening from a route to a sprint, Gregorian Chant was outrun early. He was at the back of the pack, but watch the stretch run of this 4-year-old gelding who will take the overland route under Juan Hernandez. Hernandez knew what he was sitting on. He did not want to take a chance of Gregorian Chant getting stopped. He's on the far outside. He switches leads, and whoosh, This race is absolutely over. Gregorian Chant with a scintillating turn of late speed, and he won this race going away. Now, who was behind him that day? Maybe not much relative to the rivals that he faces Saturday in the San Simeon. This was a little restricted stakes race, but it was the way that Gregorian Chant did it that you had to be impressed with. Now, if this race unfolds at a tepid pace, like I expect it to, Gregorian Chant is going to have to be a little bit closer to the pace, and he probably will. But if it turns into a sprint for home, a mad dash for home, I think Gregorian Chant is going to blow this field away. He is sharp. He is good. Talked to Phil D'Amato, his trainer, earlier this week. It was raining. It's been wet in Southern California this week, and the grass course at Santa Anita will have some give in it. Well, Phil D'Amato is licking his chops at the prospect of running Gregorian Chant over a turf course that's a little bit mushy. He thinks that this guy is going to love it. I think he's a better horse since he was gelded and since D'Amato shortened him up. He would have shortened him up sooner, but we don't have 6.5s down the hill anymore, and D'Amato did not want to run him 5 or 5.5 furlongs. Out of the new chute with 6 furlongs, and even if Juan Hernandez takes the overland route again, 7-2 odds on Gregorian Chant would be an absolute gift. Now, he's not a slam dunk. He's not against Jolie Olympica and Sistron, but he is sharp, he is good, and I think that Gregorian Chant is going to blow this field away, rallying from behind at something a little bit less than 7-2 on the morning line. I'm against Jolie Olympica, and Sistron, I think, is better on dirt. Okay, that's the San Simeon. It's race number 7. There are a pair of graded stakes races on Saturday at Santa Anita, and really the highlight of the day, as far as stakes goes, is the Grade 1 Beholder Mile. It's race number 8, and it includes the comeback of last year's champion filly, Swiss Skydiver, champion 3-year-old filly. She came out here once before, Swiss Skydiver did, early last year, shipping across the country to run in the Santa Anita Oaks, and she got hammered at 3-5. I thought that was a horribly short price, and all that Swiss Skydiver did that day was win the Santa Anita Oaks by 4 lengths. She would go on to do bigger and better things during the course of her campaign. As we see from her past performances, it was, 6 starts back she won the Santa Anita Oaks. She ran against boys in the Bluegrass. She ran okay. She lost. Won the Alabama, finished second in the Kentucky Oaks. It was in the Preakness Stakes last fall at Pimlico that Swiss Skydiver stepped up and, she showed what a champion does. She took on the boys for the second time, having lost the Bluegrass, and this is a race in which Authentic was in the field. Authentic, Kentucky Derby winner, subsequent Breeders' Cup Classic winner. Now, Authentic drifted off the rail, and Robbie Alvarado, who is now Swiss Skydiver's rider, took advantage of the opening down on the inside. And he said, "Thank you very much. I'll put Swiss Skydiver right up inside Authentic, and we'll turn it into a race for home." Even right here with Swiss Skydiver on the lead, you had to think that, Authentic is going to come and blow her away, right? Swiss Skydiver's not good enough to hold off the likes of Authentic, but turning for home, we see what an absolute bulldog Swiss Skydiver is. She refuses to let this good 3-year-old colt get by. Now, there are lots of definitions of class, but what we're watching right now exemplifies class. Swiss Skydiver refusing to let the Kentucky Derby winner go by, and that's Swiss Skydiver winning the Preakness Stakes. And that all but clinched the Eclipse Award as champion 3-year-old filly for Swiss Skydiver. She's trained by Ken McPeak, and she is very good. She started 12 times. She's won 6. She misfired in the Breeders' Cup Distaff with a huge alibi. She stumbled badly when the gates opened. She lost position. She cut up one of her legs rather severely, and that was it for Swiss Skydiver. She actually finished 7th. Fresh in 4 months, returning to California, she's the 8-5 favorite, Swiss Skydiver is, and she enters as the best horse in the race. Is she a slam dunk? No, I don't think so. She worked too fast last weekend. She went 58. She shipped across country on Tuesday. She is a short price. She's down on the inside with speed horses to her outside. Nobody's going to give her any breaks. And Swiss Skydiver, to me, faces a tall order, winning a Grade 1 first start in 4 months. Last spring, when she came out to Southern California, she had a pattern of races leading into the Santa Anita Oaks. This time, she's going first start off the bench at a short price, and I don't want any part of her from a gambling perspective. From a sporting perspective, she's absolutely the right horse. Okay, what about the best local filly? Well, best in air quotes, because I don't think that Harvest Moon has to win her comeback either. This is a filly who did not make her career debut until June of her 3-year-old year. And as you can see, she actually made her debut against winners in an allowance race. She actually ran okay that day, facing winners, first time out, and she finished third in a 5-horse field. After that, that was all she rode as far as losses go. She won a maiden race, a one other than allowance, a little podunk grade 3 down at Del Mar for 3-year-old fillies. And then in fall at Santa Anita in the grade 2 Zenyatta, we found out that Harvest Moon is definitely good enough to defeat older fillies and mares. This is her first start against older fillies and mares, stakes caliber horses, I should say, in the grade 2 Zenyatta Stakes last fall at Santa Anita. And Harvest Moon pressing the odds-on favorite, Fighting Mad. Fighting Mad was sharp at the time. She was really, really good last year, Fighting Mad was. Harvest Moon broke running. She positioned herself right on the flank of Fighting Mad. Fighting Mad is 2-5. She's supposed to win this race. Harvest Moon said, nah, I don't think so. Flavien Prat pushes the button, and Harvest Moon inches clear to win by 3/4 of a length. She puts away Fighting Mad, and that's hard not to love, the one-eyed filly coming up on the outside to make it respectable. But Harvest Moon's, the outcome was never really in doubt. She wins by 3/4. Hard Not to Love finished second, and Fighting Mad held on to finish third. Out of the grade 2 Zenyatta Stakes, Harvest Moon next did something that she never did before, and that's ship. She went all the way to Keeneland, and she took on the best fillies and mares in the country, including Monomoy Girl, and she had to use her speed from an inside post a little quicker, a little sooner than Flavien Prat would have preferred, but from her post number 2, he really had no choice. And Harvest Moon finished fourth, beaten only 2.5 lengths. She actually ran super in defeat, a lightly raced filly who did not make her career debut until June. And here it was in November, and she's running in the Breeders' Cup and finishing a good fourth behind Monomoy Girl. She has trained well for her comeback. Harvest Moon has. Her trainer, Simon Callahan, believes that he has her cranked for a top effort first start back. And once again, we have the odds dilemma. Same thing with Swiss Skydiver. Swiss Skydiver is 8-5. Harvest Moon is the 5-2 second choice. And if this was just an ordinary average field, I'd say, okay, take your pick between one of the 2 favorites and be done with it. But this is not a 2-horse race. There are actually 8 runners in the field, and there are 2 others in here that we'll talk about next that are very, very good. And they're being tested for class, including the filly that you see on the screen right there, number 6, As Time Goes By, who is listed at 4-1. She's actually my second preference in this race. I respect her pedigree, her trainer, her current form. This filly has a lot of things going in her favor as time goes by. She was sired by American Pharoah, and yes, it's true that American Pharoah, as a sire, his progeny seemed to prefer grass. Bob Baffert, who trained American Pharoah, wants to turn American Pharoah into a dirt sire also, and he might have the goods with As Time Goes By. She was produced by Take Charge Lady, a multiple graded stakes winner who I think she won, I want to say 10 out of 24. At any rate, she sprinted 3 times as time goes by, and she was rather ordinary. But when Baffert stretched her out, and that's the race that we're looking at on the screen right now, in a one other than at 1 mile in the middle of January, as time goes by, was forwardly placed, sitting just off the speed. She was actually sitting second behind Miss Megan. And Joel Rosario is sitting motionless on As Time Goes By. You always wonder, what will happen when the jockey pushes the button? Will the horse respond, or will they say, no, I'm fine sitting here in second? Well, As Time Goes By flew right by. She opens up into the lane, and she wins this one other than by an impressive 9-length margin. Maybe there wasn't a whole lot behind her, but bear in mind, this was the first route race of As Time Goes By's career. This is what she wants to do: run long. Just like her sire, just like her siblings, will take charge and take charge Indy. And Rosario, he's sitting like a statue as Time Goes By runs off the screen. She earned a 99 Beyer speed figure. Now, can you go from a one other than victory into a grade one? You sure can. In fact, Cece did it last year. Cece, from a one other than sprint straight to the winner's circle for the Beholder Mile. And 2 years ago, it was a filly by the name of Secret Spice who won an entry-level allowance, finished third in a two other than, and then she ran on to win the Beholder Mile in her next start. The point is, even though this is a grade one race, it has been won the last 2 years by fillies that are not yet proven at this class level. What CC and Secret Spice did have was sharp current form, just like the current form of As Time Goes By. As Time Goes By is listed as the 4-1 co-third choice, and I had a really tough time separating the two that I like, but I ultimately settled on this filly right here. She was a Group 1 winner down in Chile, and she arrived, like most Group 1 winners from South America, with a little bit of a reputation. We mentioned that earlier, talking about Jolie Olympica and the San Simeon. And Ceninus, whose new trainer is Mike McCarthy, it's not that she ran poorly in her first 3 starts in this country. A respectable third in a sprint comeback, a respectable third at Churchill, and a runner-up finish behind Finite in the grade 3 Chaluki. But in her most recent start, which also happened to be her first U.S. start around 2 turns and her first start at Santa Anita, let's take a look and see what Ceninus did. She was 7-1 against the likes of Miss Stormy D and Hard Not to Love. And Ceninus, she sat third off the relatively quick pace. 23-1, 46-1 is flat getting it on this deep, tiring Santa Anita dirt track. That's Ceninus up there 3 wide, cruising along under Umberto Rispoli. And right here, you're thinking, well, she is going to hit the board at 7-1. She does a little bit more than just hit the board. Ceninus, much like As Time Goes By, ran away from the field. This is a grade 3, the grade 3 La Cañada, with some accomplished fillies or mares behind her. Not the likes of what she is facing on Saturday, but there were some decent rivals that Ceninus absolutely dusted. She won by 6 lengths. She earned a 93 Beyer speed figure, and perhaps as noteworthy as the speed figure and the margin of victory is this. Ceninus won this race Lasix free. Graded stakes races in California are now run Lasix free, and Ceninus is the only starter, only entrant in the Beholder Mile that has won a race without being treated with Lasix. Every other filly, Swiss Skydiver, Harvest Moon, As Time Goes By, they have all been racing with Lasix. They will not be treated with Lasix on Saturday. So that adds a little bit of uncertainty to whether or not Swiss Skydiver, Harvest Moon, or As Time Goes By can, in fact, reproduce their best form without being treated with Lasix. That question does not apply to Ceninus, who won the La Cañada Lasix free. So we're going to find out if Ceninus is good enough to go from grade 3 to grade 1 on Saturday. We're going to find out if Time Goes By it can go from a one other than allowance into the grade 1 winner circle. We're also going to find out a lot about the likes of Swiss Skydiver, champion 3-year-old filly of 2020, and Harvest Moon, who by the end of last season was the top dirt filly in California. All right, that's a look at the San Simeon and the Beholder, and we're going to entertain a couple of questions. And the first one is from Elise. What's the tie-breaking factor for you when deciding between betting 2 horses with similar success? That is a very easy question. Thanks for lobbing me a softball, Elise. The tie-breaking factor for me is price. If you have 2 horses that are very evenly matched, I'm just going to go with the one whose odds are higher. I don't need to force a decision. And if the lower odds horse wins, well, I can take a little bit of solace in the fact that at least I was right, had the race narrowed down to 2. But when it gets right down to picking the winner between two horses, I honestly, I don't even worry too much about it. I just look at the odds, and if two horses are evenly matched from a betting perspective, I will be looking at the higher odds to make a wager. As far as selections go in the daily racing form, maybe that's perhaps what you're referring to, Elise. I look at primarily connections as a tie-breaking factor. Sometimes connections are a fundamental factor. And by connections, I mean trainer and jockey. I want to back trainers who win races. I want to back jockeys who win races. So I'm handicapping the horses. And when it gets right down to nitty-gritty time, who to put on top, who to put in the two-hole, I'll often lean toward the connections. In this case, as far as the Beholder Mile goes, you couldn't knock the connections of any of these. You got Ken McPeak, Simon Callahan, Michael McCarthy, Bob Baffert. All four of those trainers win races on a regular basis. Robbie Alvarado rides Swiss Skydiver, Harvest Moon, Flavian Pratt, the best jockey in California, Rispoli on Ceninus, and some guy named Mike Smith on As Time Goes By. As Time Goes By was ridden by Rosario last time. He's at Oakland on Saturday. So that's a long-winded way of saying I go to the connections. Here's another question from Emily Shields. Where does Swiss Skydiver's 3-year-old season fit among top fillies like Rachel, Silver Bullet Day? Well, I don't have Rachel Alexander's past performances in front of me, nor do I have Silver Bullet Days. But Rachel Alexandra, she did something in her 3-year-old campaign that Swiss Skydiver was not able to do. And I believe that is defeat older colts and geldings as a 3-year-old filly. Rachel Alexander did that. I want to say it was in the Woodward Stakes. So if you're comparing the 3-year-old filly campaigns, and I'm just going purely off of memory right now, I think I would probably rank Rachel Alexandra first, Silver Bullet Day second, and Swiss Skydiver third. And I'm not knocking Swiss Skydiver at all, but she did lose 5 times last year. She started 10 times and she won only 5 of those. I believe that Silver Bullet Day, when she was a 3-year-old filly, I'm not sure how many she lost, but I don't think she lost 5 times. So Rachel, Silver Bullet Day, Swiss Skydiver would be my top. That's how I would rank those 3. This one's from Henry. Thoughts on Triple Tap debuting this Saturday at Santa Anita? If he does well, what do you think is the next target? Well, he's going to be very tough to beat. Triple Tap makes his career debut on Saturday at Santa Anita in a little 5-horse maiden sprint. It's race number 2 on Saturday, and Triple Tap's pedigree should ring a bell. He's by Tappet out of a mare named Little Princess Emma. Little Princess Emma happens to be the dam of American Pharaoh. So Triple Tap has drawn well. He's outside. He's working well. As far as his next target, I would never even bother to guess what Baffert will do, because Baffert might not like what he sees and run him back in an allowance race. Maybe Triple Tap gets beat and he runs back in a maiden race, or maybe he runs off the screen and Baffert puts him in a race like the Bluegrass or something. I don't know, Henry. I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. Let's see how Triple Tap runs and then see what Baffert has to say afterward. I think it's a little bit too late in the season for a first-time starter to be considered as a potential candidate for any of the Triple Crown races. Who is the best long shot bet this weekend? Well, I don't know if she qualifies as a long shot, but what's wrong with 4-1 on Ceninus in the Beholder Mile? I like her. In fact, here's the thing. We get kind of narrowed into picking a horse and deciding whether to bet that horse or not. If the morning line holds in the Beholder Mile, I might bet 2 horses, and they're both listed at 4-1, Ceninus and As Time Goes By. They're both listed at 4-1, and there's nothing wrong with betting both horses. But to answer your question, I'm not trying to duck you. To answer your question, I would say Ceninus in the Beholder Mile is my best long shot. 4-1 is not a great price, but it's going to have to do for now. And in order for Ceninus to win, all she has to do is defeat last year's champion filly, last year's Grade 2 Zenyatta winner, Harvest Moon, 4th in the Breeders' Cup, and one of the sharpest fillies in Southern California As Time Goes By. So it's a lot to ask for Ceninus, but I think she might be up to the challenge. Cado River or Concert Tour? LS Alvarez, I have not handicapped that race yet. So I apologize if you ask me about horses that are running. I'll tell you what, instead of answering that question, how about if I give you the winner of the Santa Anita Derby right now? Straight from the horse's mouth, Life is Good. That's not a real revelation, is it? But Life is Good was so impressive last weekend that it's hard to see him getting beat in the Santa Anita Derby. I'm sorry I have not handicapped the Cato River Concert Tour race quite yet. Caitlin's best long shot, we talked about her. That's Ceninus in the Beholder Mile. Do we have any other questions on this edition of our handicapping situation? We don't. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to Emily Shields for orchestrating all this behind the scenes. I am Brad Free from Daily Racing Form. We're looking for Gregorian Chant to win the San Simeon, race number 7 on Saturday at Santa Anita. And we're also looking for Ceninus and or, as time goes by, to win the Grade 1 Beholder Mile one race later, race 8, Saturday at Santa Anita. I'm Brad Free. We'll talk to you next time.